Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Hopefully you guys are all having a fantastic day. So, I should have made this video earlier. We're already in March 9th. We're already a couple days into meteorological spring, but I was delayed. I had a lot of things going on. As you know, my YouTube channel got demonetized. I tried sorting things out, but things haven't yet been sorted out, so it's a little bit tough right now, but I decided to make one still, and hopefully you will enjoy. And if you like to support this channel, you could do this after you watch a video, but just keep this in the back of your mind. If you like to support this channel, especially times of need right now, you could do so by subscribing or becoming a Patreon. The link is in the description, so thank you for doing that. So this is obviously for 2019 official spring outlook. This is extending from March through the end of May. Even though astronomically spring goes all the way up to June 21st, I wanted to stick to meteorological spring, which is from March 1st to June 1st. So that's when this is spanning through. So let's just go through this. We see this is the CFS model. This is for the month of April. And I usually don't like these models at all because they're very far off and they don't show much. But when they do show blue colors, because they're usually cold not biased, so they always show warm temperatures very abundantly compared to the cold temperatures, and rarely show any blue temperatures or any blue colors, which mean below average temperatures. And we could see that there's some below average temperatures by the towards the north and towards a little bit of the south. So that kind of gives us an idea that it may be a little bit cooler here across the northern part of the country, maybe into the eastern country, but across the east, the very far east, and the west, it should stay warm. For the month of May, you can see things start getting a little bit more warmer, a little bit more above average. But again, these models are just so unreliable that I'm surprised actually myself I'm including this in here. But again, I just wanted to do this because of showing these blue colors. You know, it's rare that they show these blue colors because they're so biased. So when they do show these blue colors, it kind of gives us an indication that, you know, we may be looking at something chillier for the country, maybe for the north and a little bit for the south. So let's go a little bit more into the evidence part, something that is a little bit more reliable. So right here we have the El Nino outlook, or the ENCO outlook. So right now, El Nino conditions have formed and are favored to continue through the northern hemisphere of spring 2019. And you can see February, March, April, around the spring time frame, March, April, May, spring, and April, May, June, we see the El Nino dominating. And it starts getting weaker and weaker as we go on in time, and there may be actually a neutral taking over into the winter time, so we'll have to see that. But, you know, my winter outlook is still fairly far out for the year 2020, or 2019-2020. But El Nino for the spring seems to be dominating. And you may be wondering now, what are the effects of a weak El Nino on, or just an El Nino on spring? So this is what a weak El Nino forms. This is what potential spring impacts are. You can see fewer tornadoes in the mid-south, warmer and drier than normal. Right now that seems fairly likely. Warmer and drier than normal. The models are showing that across the west. I would extend this a little bit further into the east. In fact, warmer ocean waters, so that means that bigger storms may come into the west, or they could take this path right here if this dome is strong enough and these storms need to diverge and go to the south, and they end up producing quite a bit of rain across the southeast and east. And El Nino, whether it's a weak El Nino or a stronger El Nino, or even if it's a neutral, which I don't think we will see a neutral this spring, since the El Nino has formed, I don't think it will, you know, go away for quite a while. El Nino, the ENCO or ENSO, doesn't have as big of an impact on spring, summer, and fall as it does on winter. It gets, when we have a weak El Nino compared to a moderate El Nino to a strong El Nino, those things could be really vital in determining a winter pattern. However, the difference between a weak El Nino and a strong El Nino for spring is usually very similar, as they don't have as much impacts. They still have impacts, as you could see by this map, just not as much. In terms of this fewer tornadoes area, it's really tough to say it because, you know, the south seems to be fairly above average right now, and with above average rainfall, above average temperatures, it seems like there would be more tornadoes. But I think severe weather may be fairly above average. I think just the tornadoes may be below average. It's a really tough call to make, especially since we already had an unfortunate start to the season with several already tornadoes in Alabama. I think that was Alabama and Georgia, killing people, which definitely is not good. This is in terms of the historical March through May El Nino precipitation patterns. So, how does the precipitation, look like during an El Nino year for spring, which is March through May? And we see a below average across the Northwest and the Midwest, especially the upper plains, and an above average across California, the South, and the East. And this all makes sense because if you go back here, you could see warmer ocean waters could produce more storms for California. As you could see right there, let's see if I could turn on a pointer. Right there, we have above average precip. Above average rainfall across this area. Let's see, historically, that seems fairly proving to be right. Look at that. Those states in the south and especially the east, above average rainfall. And this basically is just a frequency of occurrence of these below average or above average conditions, and you could see they fairly add up. So we move on into my temperature outlook. This is what I think the temperatures will be for this spring, and I am giving a slight, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a light blue right there, and the reason I'm doing very light blue and not that much because I'm not too sure if the winter's gonna drag on for much longer than it will for the next 2 weeks, and I think then it'll be over because I'll be making a video on this maybe today, Sunday, March 9th. On the winter's last grasp, because there's still going to be a couple of cold shots of air. I'm just not sure if they will, get the whole average down to below average because of those cold shots. I think later on spring should be fairly warm and humid, so I don't think that this blue should be much bigger than what it is. And then I have these red and yellow colors, or the orange and yellow. The orange means more above average, the yellow means less above average but still above average, and you can see it kind of is around like the perimeters of the United States, and that's because these cold shots may have put a dent to this, and may keep the warmer air at bay. But these areas in gray, I just basically went like, this spring this spring should not be really characterized by being really above or below average. Maybe 0.5 degrees, each way. But I think that this is obviously not 100% right. This would be insane if this was 100% right. There's gonna be obviously fluctuations. I would say I have 65 to 70% confidence in this, which is less than I have in my winter outlook because those I have more details, more evidence to use. Spring outlooks are really tough to make. So I'm not too sure about these areas. They could either go below average or above average, but these areas that are in the color either blue or the yellow and orange, I think are already gonna be fairly above or below average, and they have a higher chance than these areas in the normal or in the gray. In terms of precip, this is going off mainly that historical graph that I showed you earlier. I think it's gonna be drier across the north central U.S., and that is because of the pattern that will not be favorable for lots of rain in those areas, and with this jet stream coming up from the south should be bringing quite a bit of moisture to the south and into the southeast. Hurricane season, I'm not factoring that into this because spring usually no hurricanes really impact the U.S. that are major. So I think this is just going to be in terms of severe weather and just rain events. And then the west could go either way. Could be above average here. I think it's more likely to be above average rather than below average. I think especially California could be in the green as well. Moving on to the overall spring outlook, this is kind of what I think will happen. Like what will characterize this spring for each area. So I think that the right here, the north will be characterized, spring will be remembered as a bit of cold and snow, especially towards the beginning. And I would not be surprised if this would extend down into North Dakota and South Dakota. Especially, I also included Maine in here. That's because we've been seeing a fairly chilly and snowy pattern for Maine this year, and I think that may continue into spring. The next area is the early warmth. I think that in the next maybe 2 to 3 weeks, we should really start warming up across this part of the country, and we should go above average, especially for April and maybe early May. But then it should just go back down to average, maybe a little bit below average. But early warmth, I think, should occur across these areas. The next area I want to discuss is this area. This is severe weather, and the reason why I just did severe weather, not tornadoes, is because I'm not too sure about the tornadoes. There's been quite a bit of evidence and research done that with an El Nino year, tornadoes are fairly down across much of the states here in the Tornado Alley. So I just did severe weather, which includes damaging winds, hail, anything of that sort. Not really, heavy rain, not really tornadoes. So severe weather, I think those still going to be prominent. And obviously plenty of rain in these areas. That's going to be probably the main remembrance of spring. Plenty of rain across the south, and it already has been. Winter has been very rainy. I think unfortunately will continue. And into the these areas, into the south, southwest, I think it'll be very warm. At least that's what it's looking as of right now. Fairly warm, and this could extend up into the north a little bit, and also maybe a little bit above average in the northwest. Though that is still could change a little bit. That was kind of a little bit of my unconcerned area, or my more uncertain area, I should say, because there could be, especially when there's cold air at the beginning, when the cold air comes in like this and swoops in for this part of the country, there could be the jet stream is going to be going right through these areas, which could bring more precip and snow to these areas, especially towards early spring. Though that could if that pattern doesn't hold true, then this could just be average out to basically an average winter or average spring. And those areas in green, I just basically, there was nothing really that it should be, like in between these two, maybe early warmth, bit of cold, very warm, above average precip, severe weather, just a kind of nothing really extreme. So thank you guys so much for watching. Consider liking the video, consider subscribing to my channel. I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See you.